What's up, people? It's Titus here with a brief tutorial on working with Blueprint classes in Unreal Engine. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to construct a custom Blueprint class, set up collision detection, and then add some code to give life to our object. Let's not waste any time, get right into it. I'm going to be working in the third-person template. Make sure the starter content is checked. Choose a location and give a name, and let's create our project. For this one, I'm going to be using a classic example of a house. So we'll construct a house model. We'll add a light, and then we're basically going to create some functionality in the game based on a collision detection. So it'll be pretty basic. Let's set up our content. I'm going to create some folders. First one's going to be levels. And then we'll create one called blueprints. And then I'm actually going to create a brand new basic level. Let's go ahead and save it. And we'll call it level 1. Now, if you selected the starter content, there's an architecture folder in there. And we can build our house using these assets. So it's pretty basic. I'm going to be working with the 4x4 wall and the 4x4 archway. So I'm just go ahead and drag out couple meshes for the back, sides, and ceiling. And then I'm going to go ahead and rotate them around. And when you're setting up your house, try to overlap the mesh icons. The reason being is because we're going to use it to demonstrate a pretty cool effect later on. Alright, so like that looks good there. One looks good right there. Rotate that down 90. And then let's bring it up. Looks pretty good. Let's see how it looks with our archway. Might still have to bring it in a little bit more. Oops. Don't do that. Alright, that looks pretty good. Alright, so now that we got our walls, let's add our light. So under the quick add option, we'll choose basic, and we'll do a point light. Now, since we're going to be driving this code through collision, we'll also need a trigger box to be able to do the detection for the collision. So we'll go to quick add basic, trigger box. And then I'm actually going to scale the trigger box by 5 in the X, Y, and Z. And then I'm going to try to line it up so it's inside the house here. Alright, looks pretty good. We'll move that one forward 1. Alright, so that pretty much completes our just basic setup now. So what we're going to do is we're going to select our objects that we created our house with. Includes the point light, the trigger box, and then the wall meshes. And then you can come to the blueprint icon at the top and do convert selection to blueprint class. And then it's important you harvest the components, choose a appropriate location, and give a house to your, or give a name to your new blueprint. So we'll call it blueprint or b underscore house. All right, perfect. So now what we're gonna do is move our blueprint, oops, the house rather, forward. And then we're going to add in a player start under basic. Alright, so not much to it. Basic house component. So the behavior we want to drive is when we go into the house, the light should turn on, and when we leave, the light should turn off. Alright, so let's go ahead and first see if we can fix this trigger box here. I think it needs to go over. Actually, it probably needs to be scaled down a bit. Let's do 4. I guess we'll scale it by 4 in the Y as well. Alright, there we go. That seems good. Okay, so now let's go ahead and script out the code for it. So what we'll want to do is under the event graph here, we already have a event actor begin overlap. Let's move the begin play and tick out of the way. We can drag off this begin overlap, do a cast to our third person character, hook up the other actor output into the object input. It'll run a check to see if it's our third person. If it is, it'll run this code. If it's not, it'll run this code. Since our third person character is going to be the only thing in the game really, it's going to succeed. So let's go ahead and get a reference to the point light. We can just drag the point light out, and then we can tell it to set the visibility. We'll hook up the execution pins, set the new visibility to be on, compile and save. And if we go into our viewport and select the point light, we can actually search for visibility, and we can start with it off. All right, let's see if that works. So light's not on, we go in, light turns on, but when we leave, light doesn't turn off. So let's add that in. So we can click on our trigger box, right click, add a custom event or an event for the trigger box collision, type collision, and we want an end overlap. And then it's basically going to be the same thing. So we can just cast to our third person character, hook up the other actor output to the input, and then we can go off the same point light reference, do a set visibility. We'll just do visibility. And this time we can leave it to false. And then we'll hook up our execution pin, compile and save. And now when we enter, light turns on, leave, light turns off. Pretty basic. Now another way you could also do this is instead of doing a set visibility, you could just do a toggle. Some objects actually have a toggle function, and we can show you what that looks like. And I'm going to actually break the end overlap. So now the only one that's running is this one. So now when I enter it, it turns on. When I enter it again, it turns off. So you can get some different functionality if that's what you're looking for. But we're going to hook it up like we had it. That's easier to understand. All right, but let's go ahead and take it a step further. We can, after we set the visibility, let's go ahead and spawn an emitter at location. And then we can play a sound. We'll do play sound 2D because we're not going to do anything fancy in this one. And after we play the sound, we can destroy the actor. And the reference to self is the reference to the blueprint, which is the entire actor. So it's basically going to destroy everything. Now, because we're destroying, we'll want to disconnect our execution pin on our end overlap. And we can actually probably just delete this code because it's going to be obsolete here in a second. All right, but we still need to give it a location. I think we'll spawn the emitter at the light. So what we'll do is after we set the visibility, let's drag off here and actually set a delay so we can actually see what's happening. We'll do 2 seconds. Drag this out here. And then off our point light, we will get world location. Hook up our yellow return value to our location input. And then for our scale, you can simply just set to 5 or 10. I think it's probably appropriate. If you want to play with this value later, an easier way to do it would be you can simply just right click, promote it to a variable, and we'll call it our emitter size. And you can see that's right here. You set the value down in the bottom right, but you have to hit compile for you to see the actual size. So then you can easily change the values from there and just reference them. The emitter we're going to play, let's do an explosion. And then the sound, let's do an explosion as well. I'm going to set the volume to be 0.2 because it's a little bit loud. And then, yeah, let's see what that looks like. So let's compile and save. So we walk in, light turns on, and then should go boom. All right, it's a pretty cool effect. And then if you wanted to kind of mess around with it more, because it's a blueprint class, you can just hold Alt and then drag off your arrows, and you can just create multiple houses like that. And then maybe we go to the delay timer and do maybe a 0.5, compile and save, and now you have a pretty neat effect. All right, but let's take it a little bit further here. So let's go back in, and rather than destroying our actor, instead, let's do some, let's simulate some physics. So you can actually drag off this pin, do simulate physics. Doesn't matter which one you choose because we're going to delete the reference, so any of these will work. And then just delete the reference item that it brings in. And the reason you want to do that is because we actually want to select the entirety of all the walls, drag them in, and then we're going to be hooking them all up. So then we'll hit the targets here, like so. Compile. Now this by itself isn't going to do anything because we didn't set up collision boxes on the meshes. What I mean by that is you actually have to go into your starter content folder again and your architecture folder or whatever meshes you're using, and whatever ones you chose, just go ahead and open those up. And there's a collision option at the top. I like to do just a simplified collision. And then you'll want to search on the right for collision. And you'll notice under the collision presets, the complexity needs to be changed to project default. And then save. And you got to repeat those steps for every architecture item or every mesh item you used that you plan on, you know, kind of having simulated physics. So I did the wall and the archway. So we'll add collision, I'll do box simplified, and then I'll search collision, and I'm going to change complexity to project default, and then I'm going to save. This is still not going to work because you're going to find that you probably can't get into the house. Right. That kind of makes sense though. And that's because you now have a collision wall blocking you. So there's a few ways around that. You can actually go into your third person character blueprint, and then you can change the custom collision presets here, and do like a custom. Basically, you can everything in the world kind of has a collision type, and then you can check or uncheck in both places, and then it'll ignore collision and get around it that way. But we're gonna do something a little bit easier and, in my opinion, better. If you just go into the archway, you can select the collision, and you can just simply scale it, and then just move it out of the way, and then you can hold Alt and click off of it to duplicate it, and then hold Alt again, duplicate it again, go back into scale, and I'm going to disable snapping here and scale it. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but that should give us the same effect that we're looking for. So now if we play, I can get into the house, but you notice it's still not popping apart, and that's probably because I forgot to actually simulate the physics. So set that to true. Yeah, there you go. Interesting little pop effect. A few issues with it. The first one being that we want to destroy the trigger box and the light still. So drag off your pin here and do destroy. You can't do destroy actor because that will destroy the entirety of the blueprint. And if you do that, you're going to lose the effect because it's going to happen so fast. So what you want to do instead is actually destroy component. And then you just simply get your reference to your light and your trigger box. Because I'll show you what I mean by that just before I do it. So you probably already noticed it, but the trigger's still there, so you can keep doing it basically. So we'll hook this up here, this up there, hook up our execution pin, compile, and play. So now, when it separates, I can't actually trigger it again. That's a pretty cool effect, but it's also kind of fake, which is fine. But if you want to go for something where maybe you have a little bit more granular control over the popping effect, we're going to need to actually set a force or an impulse to be able to actually do that. Because the way it's working now is it's basically just rubber banding. So kind of let me show you what that looks like. So what I'll do is I'll disconnect it here, and I'll disconnect it here, and then we'll bypass these nodes, and then yeah, that'll work. So that's compile, save. So it's not actually the explosion or anything, just to prove to you. It's literally because when we were designing the house and I told you to overlap the meshes, when you add simulate physics, those meshes are overlapped, so they want to basically rubber band apart. So that's why you're getting that little pop effect. So if you want to be able to actually do it like an explosion, a way to do that instead would be after the set simulated physics, you can drag out and do set impulse or create impulse, add impulse. If you do add impulse, you'll get the same exact, I suspect you'll get the same exact kind of pop on every single house. So if you want a little bit of randomness to it, I would do add impulse at location, because it's going to throw things just a little bit differently, not every single time. So it's because where it's at in the world location is going to be different relative to the other houses. So here, I'll just kind of show you what that looks like. So we need to do a target. So again, we're just going to drag off our walls that we had earlier, so we can use the same references. And then we need to add an impulse. If you want to control this, we'll promote it to a variable by right-clicking on it. And we can just call it impulse. That actually works. I'm actually going to set it to 500 for now. And then if I want a location, I'm going to use the light actor as a location. So what I can do is drag off this guy, get world location, and then I can actually just drag off here. And I think I will just do it like this, so it's fine. A little funky, but that's fine. All right, let's see what that looks like. Kind of felt samey, so let's see if we can increase the size. So on the event begin play, we will set the impulse, and we will also get the impulse. And we are going to multiply. Drag this pin here, and I'm actually going to hook the impulse into the same pin, so I'm just going to multiply it by itself. And that's an easy way to get your values to scale very quickly. So now let's see if this moves it anymore. Hey, there you go. That gives you a much better result. And then you can play with the values, however you like them. All right, but let's add a little bit more, effect. So let's first add in our explosion again. So we'll hook up this pin, we'll hook up this pin, and then after we explode it, where's a good place to put this in? Is it before the... Let's do it after the impulse. I think that'll probably be best. So we'll drag off this pin, and we'll do... Actually, no, because it'll be easier if we do it right here, because we're going to have to drag off that again. Drag this one over here. Alright, so let's drag off after set simulated. We'll do set material. And the material we're going to use is like an exploded material. I think grime looks pretty exploded. And then we'll have to hook in our references again. So we can just recreate them or just drag off your same references from earlier, however you want to do it. Compile and save. And then let's give a play. And let's see how we're looking. There you go. And there you go. That's a pretty cool effect. Kind of gets the point across of how quick and powerful blueprint classes are. Yeah, all right, people. That's pretty much concludes this tutorial on our custom blueprint class. I hope you found it informative, and I hope it helps you in your development projects. If so, please leave a like and give a comment below on any future topics you want covered on this channel. As always, thanks for watching. See you on the next one, and remember, the best error message is the one that never shows up.